Welcome back. You're watching World Insight, coming to you live from Beijing. The World Health Organization on board with China's commitment to contain the coronavirus outbreak. The WHO said it appreciated China's transparency and timeliness in sharing key data while warning world governments to stay alert. It also appealed for calm. But as the number of confirmed cases spiked, more countries are imposing travel restrictions to stop the contagion. The U.S. carried out a temporary ban on the entry of foreign nationals who had traveled to China over the past 2 weeks. The Chinese Foreign Ministry said the U.S. should work with China and the international community in coronavirus prevention efforts. It noted how the U.S. offered assistance to China and help would come soon. Earlier, I sat down with Jim Breyer, an American venture capitalist who's the founder and CEO of Breyer Capital. He said we need international cooperation in healthcare and technology, especially between China and the U.S. at this critical time. Let's listen in. So many things going on, an extra layer of pressure, the virus, the coronavirus and the spread of it. What does that mean for a business community with this one extra layer of uncertainty?
I'm so hopeful that we contain the virus and learn what's happening.
There have been a lot of talk about international cooperation in public health as the very priority for international security issues. But geopolitics are dragging us apart at this critical moment. How much do you think, Jim, as an investor, should we re-examine what we have been doing over the past 2 to 3 years?
It's time to closely re-examine how the relationship, in particular the bilateral relationship between China and the U.S., U.S.-China, evolves. We need to cooperate. If we just take something like the virus and healthcare, we are not going to solve so many of the world's healthcare problems without deep cooperation between China and the United States.
Now, earlier, in early January, the Chinese scholars already put out the genetic data of the new coronavirus, and the international community has got hold of it and are already doing their research. But here is the thing. It's probably a science issue now, that whether we'll be able to figure something out on time. Jim, as an investor in technology and also in basic science, what is your assessment of the current situation?
My assessment is nature continues, no matter how difficult the technological challenges are, to exert its power, its force, and it will always do so. And so as we continue to develop deep technologies, very innovative solutions around the world in artificial intelligence and quantum computing, it is time to make sure there's cooperation, because this is where the evolution of so many of the solutions will be. Great technologies, interdisciplinary solutions, bringing doctors, scientists, great computer programmers together. And it just so happens that of the 1,000 best artificial intelligence researchers that I know of in the world, half of them are in China and half of them are in the United States.
Right. Well, you could be optimistic in that regard, because right now we are facing a crisis. But what about the systematic building? Now, over the past 2 years, during the trade war, the two countries, apparently, particularly technological cooperation, has been decoupling very fast, including the AI ban, as we know, early January. So, Jim, to you, investor, what is the urgent thing that the two governments and the two countries need to do now in order to make sure the cooperation continues or pick it up once again?
There needs to be a series of high-level strategic initiatives, and at the same time, there needs to be great substance in getting together. Mutual cooperation is more important than ever, and it's public and private cooperation. It's the great academics, it's the great scientists, and we need to put together a roadmap, whether it's a 2025 or 2030 roadmap of mutual cooperation.
Is it possible during an election year?
may not be. But
thank you for being very honest, sir. But
it's essential. And it may not be possible in the election year, but it's essential that we do so over the next year or two. And
is it possible, though, that we're going to further decoupling during an election year?
It is possible. I hope in important areas like healthcare, and where artificial intelligence meets healthcare to help provide solutions, there doesn't need to be decoupling. There needs to be mutual cooperation. In areas such as 5G, I'm less optimistic. I think there has been decoupling. China's ahead right now, and we'll see how it all evolves. But in certain areas, it's so essential to have coupling.
But of course, as people would argue about so-called the dual use of technologies. Well, technology these days, everything is dual use, isn't it?
It certainly is. And there's a lot of good where we're watching technology in action to solve very important healthcare problems. At the same time, there are still many dangers around technology,
right,
which is one reason why it's so important to get mutual cooperation and then to understand what are the pitfalls around artificial intelligence, what are the pitfalls around what quantum computing may lead to,
right,
and work on a good plan, not only on the benefits of technology. I'm an optimist, and I'm such an excited investor over where technological improvements will lead us.
You could be excited about that. However, when it comes to legislations, when it comes to public policies, when it comes to coordination of public policies, we are seeing very devastating situations. There are two players, as you just mentioned, China and United States, not working together about that. You also lack of international platforms in which most voices could be heard, and lack of consensus still right now. So where is the thing that you have been talking about? Let's look at them closely and let's come up with the right way of doing things. Where does it come from?
Personal relationships and strategic relationships and great mutual interest. I love the Chinese culture, and I will be investing in China for decades.
You're not afraid?
I'm not afraid.
Of the political backlash?
I am not afraid.
Why is that?
I think so many of the important solutions which we talk about here at Davos and elsewhere require cooperation, require massive technological improvement, and I believe that over time there will be cooperation in very important areas such as healthcare. In other areas such as financial services, I don't believe there will be deep cooperation, and so there is a decoupling. However, as an investor trying to generate outstanding returns over a long period of time, China and the U.S., U.S.-China will continue to represent the areas where it's most important if one is to generate long-term outstanding returns.
But, you know, Jim, just be realistic here. If you look at the performances of some of the hedge funds recently, those that have been emphasizing on portfolios related to China or about China or from the U.S., of course, I'm talking about these hedge funds, are not necessarily enjoying their best performances this year. So, I mean, last year. So, realistically speaking, as an investor, how would you examine all of these different kinds of assessment?
It's a very different business when you're in the hedge fund business. As a
course.
venture capitalist,
Of course.
I'm trying to identify who are the great next generations of entrepreneurs, the great women, the great men, and they're in China and the U.S. And so from a practical standpoint, again, to generate outstanding long-term returns, we need to be investing in the best and brightest in China and the United States.
What are some of the trends you are looking at?
Artificial intelligence is still in its nascent stages. And it's fascinating and wonderful in so many ways. But I'm also starting to explore early investing in quantum computing and quantum communications. And over the next decade, quantum communications, quantum computing will have a far greater impact than even what we talk about today with artificial intelligence.
Jim, China and the United States eventually signed the first phase. The phase one, however, did not cheer everybody up, but rather it's a truce believed by many. What is your assessment?
That is my assessment, that it's a truce. I'm glad the rhetoric has dropped a little bit in terms of its volume. At the same time, there are so many complex issues that are yet to be solved. Intellectual property, win-win intellectual property for both sides is still very complex and will take time. So we're at the very beginning.
What are the tricky parts of that?
Well, the tricky parts, I could spend hours, but it's extraordinarily complex.
Yeah.
It's not just technology. It's trying to predict where the technology is going, but it's also business models, institutions, and the expectation that there's predictability and consistency over time in how companies operating in both countries can work effectively.
Yeah, but the thing is, how long will phase one last, in a way, the truce, as you say?
I'm hopeful that it lasts at least for
the rest of the election year?
The rest of the election year. I don't believe, and I'm not confident, that there's a phase two anytime soon. So as I think about the year of the rat, I'm thinking that we need to focus on phase one, build additional touch points of cooperation, but I'm not optimistic that there will be a phase two or three anytime soon.
I try to learn from your optimism, and therefore let's be constructive in my question in a way. If I could ask you, over the past 2 years, many people were appalled by the speed of the falling of this relationship between China and the United States. People were assuming in a globalized world, decouple is not that easy. However, we have seen clear signs of it. So would that serve as a wake-up call for many from two sides, so that we are not going to have further free fall of the relationship, but rather those who really cares going to come out with a hand, try to hold it back? Jim?
I believe there is a lot that we don't see at the high level that is very important and gives me cause for optimism. I think it's so important that there are strategic relationships, high-level relationships, but so much of it is about interpersonal cooperation, mutual understanding, and I believe that it takes time, but it's worth all the effort we all put in.
On the other hand, Jim, even though we are seeing competition between China and the United States in real terms from time to time, but there were the issue of whether it is about self-fulfilling prophecies.
A lot of my optimism is around the students at the universities around the world.
Right.
And I met this morning with some of the very best Stanford professors in physics and quantum computing. They said many of their best postdoctoral students are Tsinghua graduates who have come to Stanford and studied. Mutual cooperation at the student academic level is one wonderful place to start. And I hope we can continue to emphasize that and not fall into the trap of rhetoric and back and forth where a lot of damage long term can be done.
Having said that, though, what's next, Jim? Particularly this international platform that we talk about, international system too, in which China and the United States are big players. But without this system existing, China and the U.S. will be lacking of a very important opportunity to work together. So it's not just bilateral, it's also cooperation on multilateral platforms. Is there one opportunity for us there?
Well, this is why I'm so focused on educational institutions and healthcare and the benefits that AI and technology can bring to healthcare. That's a wonderful area where there should be deep mutual cooperation, and I'm very optimistic that it's happening in many ways.
That's my exclusive interview with Jim Breyer, who is an American venture capitalist who's vowed to increase the cooperation between China and the United States on artificial intelligence, especially when it's contributing to the healthcare cooperation between the two countries. That interview was on the sideline of the World Economic Forum earlier. Throughout our program today, we've been talking about the outbreak of the coronavirus in China. And one of the issues is how to find the places for the patients, whether they are confirmed or suspected. Right now, a lot of efforts are being made. We're going to leave you with one report about exactly those efforts. As confirmed coronavirus cases grow in Wuhan, the city is looking for alternatives to treat patients. CGTN's Tian visits a well-known exhibition center in the city that for now is already functioning as a hospital.
I'm at Wuhan's International Conference and Exhibition Center. As you can see, dozens of workers are turning this exhibition center into a temporary hospital. At first, the hospital was designed to provide 1,000 additional beds to receive patients with minor symptoms of the coronavirus. But now, as you can see, it's getting bigger. So officials told me they are going to receive 1,800 patients in this facility. 400 workers have gathered in the center, and they've been working non-stop and trying to finish this as soon as possible.
An authority from the center says they're doing everything they can.
We have pulled all of the city's manpower to work here, 24 hours non-stop.
So the center will be turned into one of the 3 module hospitals. So a module hospital is used by the People's Liberation Army in major disaster relief. It's really effective.
Think about each module as an individual medical department. Each has a separate function, such as surgical treatment or clinical examination. When they are put together, these modules become a mobile hospital. Chen says the conversion can be done within 1 day. Once the medical equipment moves in, the hospital can start receiving patients. Tian, CGTN, Wuhan.
An exhibition center in Wuhan turned into a temporary hospital. And that is all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more, try to find us World Insight CGTN into your search engine. Check out our YouTube channel and also Twitter and Facebook account. I'm Tian Wei on behalf of our team of World Insight. Thanks for watching and be healthy. See you next time. Bye.